What if I told you there's an onion that plants itself? An onion that survives winters, that kill everything else in your garden, that produces food 12 months a year, that multiplies without any effort from you, spreading across your yard like a slow-motion invasion of flavor. You plant it once, just once, and you never buy onions again, not next year, not in 10 years, not for the rest of your life. It grows in zones where temperatures plunge to -40. It shrugs off droughts that wither conventional alliums. It produces greens in February when nothing else dares emerge. The ancient Egyptians cultivated it. Medieval Europeans depended on it. American homesteaders carried it west in covered wagons, knowing it was too valuable to leave behind, and today you've probably never heard of it. Because you can't find it at Home Depot, you won't see it at the garden center. The industrial onion system, $9 billion in annual global sales, has no interest in a plant that makes customers unnecessary. This is the Egyptian walking onion, and the reason it walks is the reason they don't want you to know it exists. Welcome to this new video. Before we open this file, if these stories matter to you, the best way to preserve this wisdom is simple. Subscribe, hit the bell, and share this with those who need to remember what we forgot. Because the most self-sufficient vegetable ever domesticated is waiting to make your garden immortal. Let's begin. The year is approximately 3000 BCE. The place, the fertile banks of the Nile River. Egyptian laborers are building monuments that will outlast millennia. The pyramids at Giza, the temples at Karnak, structures so massive they still defy complete explanation. And what are these workers eating? Onions. Herodotus, the Greek historian, recorded that inscriptions on the Great Pyramid documented the cost of onions, garlic, and radishes fed to the laborers, the equivalent of 1,600 talents of silver. That's roughly $30 million in today's currency, spent on alliums alone. The Egyptians weren't just eating onions, they were worshiping them. Onion bulbs have been found in the eye sockets of mummified pharaohs. Paintings in tombs show priests holding onions during funeral ceremonies. The concentric rings were seen as symbols of eternal life, layers within layers, without beginning or end. Among the varieties they cultivated was a strange onion that behaved like no other. Instead of producing flowers and seeds at the top of its stalk, it grew clusters of small bulbs, miniature onions suspended in the air, defying gravity and logic. As these top sets grew heavy, the stalk would bend toward the ground. The bulbils would touch the soil. Roots would emerge. A new plant would establish itself inches away from its parent. Then that plant would grow, produce its own aerial bulbs, bend, root, and repeat. The onion was walking, slowly, inexorably, across the garden, across the years, across the centuries. The Egyptians recognized what they had, a vegetable that planted itself. That required no annual sowing. That could survive the lean years when seed stocks failed. They carried it along trade routes. It spread through the Mediterranean. By the medieval period, it grew in monastery gardens across Europe. The same monks who cultivated ground elder and medicinal herbs recognized a perennial food source when they saw one. It arrived in North America with the earliest colonists. Thomas Jefferson may have grown it at Monticello. Pioneer families absolutely carried it westward. A plant this reliable was too precious to abandon. And somewhere along the way, as industrial agriculture standardized the food supply, the walking onion was left behind, not because it failed, because it succeeded too well. Let me explain what makes this plant so extraordinary. The Egyptian walking onion, Allium times proliferum, is a hybrid, probably a cross between common onion and Welsh onion that occurred naturally thousands of years ago. That hybrid origin gives it vigor that neither parent possesses. It is perennial. Plant it once and it lives indefinitely. Individual clumps have been documented surviving for decades. Some families report patches that have persisted for over a century, passed down through generations like living heirlooms. It is unbelievably cold-hardy. Walking onions survive winters in USDA Zone 3, where temperatures plunge to minus 40 degrees. They've been grown successfully in Alaska. They emerge from frozen soil before the snow fully melts, producing green shoots when everything else in the garden is still dormant. They're equally tolerant of heat, thriving from Canada to the deep south. They require almost nothing. No fertilizer beyond basic compost, no pesticides. The same sulfur compounds that make you cry when cutting onions repel most insects. No irrigation beyond natural rainfall in most climates. And they produce food at every stage of growth. The green shoots can be harvested like scallions from early spring through late fall. Cut them at ground level. They regrow. In mild climates, you can harvest greens year-round. The underground bulbs can be dug and used like shallots, smaller than conventional onions but intensely flavored, excellent for cooking. The top sets, those strange aerial bulbs that give the plant its walking ability, are edible too. Harvest them in late summer when they've sized up. They're like pearl onions with a sharper bite, perfect for pickling, roasting whole, or using anywhere you want concentrated onion flavor. One plant provides scallions, shallots, and pearl onions simultaneously, and it replaces itself automatically. This is the part the seed companies don't want you to understand. Modern onion agriculture is based on annual production. Farmers buy seed or sets every single year. Seed companies sell the same product to the same customers in perpetuity. The global onion seed market is worth over $1 billion annually. That $1 billion depends on onions that die after one season, requiring repurchase. The Egyptian walking onion breaks this model. You buy it once, or more likely, you get it free from a neighbor whose patch has spread beyond their needs. You plant it, and that's it, forever. No more seed purchases, no more nursery trips, no more annual planting and hoping. The plant handles everything. It overwinters without protection. It divides underground, multiplying. The bulbs. It sends up stalks that produce topsets that bend down and root, expanding the colony outward. Left alone, a single walking onion plant becomes a patch. The patch becomes a bed. The bed tries to become a field. Your only job is harvesting. This is abundance without dependency. Food production without annual inputs. A genuinely self-sustaining system that requires nothing from the industrial supply chain. You can see why this isn't featured in seed catalogs. The walking onion's obscurity is a perfect case study in how industrial food systems shape what we grow and what we forget. Consider what happened to the American food garden over the past century. In 1900, most households grew significant portions of their own food. Seed saving was standard practice. Perennial vegetables, walking onions, rhubarb, asparagus, sorrel, formed the backbone of kitchen gardens because they produced year after year without repurchase. By 2000, the average American household spent 90% of its food budget on processed and prepared foods from industrial sources. Home gardening had become a hobby, not a necessity. And the plants people grew shifted toward annuals, tomatoes, peppers, squash, that required buying new seeds or starts each spring. The perennials faded from memory, not because they stopped working, because the economic model changed around them. Seed companies consolidated. Marketing promoted their products. Garden media, magazines, TV shows, websites featured what advertisers wanted featured. Walking onions, which can't be sold repeatedly, slipped from view. You have to seek them out now. Online specialty nurseries carry them. Seed exchanges and permaculture networks trade them. The survival gardening community has rediscovered them. But you won't find them at the big box store, because every walking onion sold is a customer lost forever. The plant doesn't know about market economics. It just keeps walking, and every year it walks, it demonstrates something. The industrial model would rather you not see that food can provide itself if we let it. There's a reason homesteaders and preppers prize this plant. When systems fail, and they do fail, perennial food sources become insurance policies. During the Great Depression, families with established walking onion patches had a reliable vegetable when money for seeds disappeared. The plants didn't care about bank failures. They emerged in spring, the same as always. During World War II, victory gardens across America included walking onions because they required no resources from a strained supply chain, no seeds to divert from war production, no cultivation inputs that might be rationed. In the Back to the Land movement of the 1970s, walking onions spread through communal farms and homesteads. People rediscovering self-sufficiency recognized the value of a plant that asked nothing and gave everything. Today, as supply chains strain and grocery prices climb, the walking onion is experiencing another quiet renaissance. Permaculture designers specify it for food forests. Preppers stockpile top sets. Backyard gardeners discover that a single purchase eliminates onion expenses permanently. The plant that fed pyramid builders is ready to feed whoever plants it next. So, how do you start your own immortal onion patch? First, acquire some. This is the trickiest part, only because walking onions aren't in mainstream commerce. Search for specialty Allium nurseries online. Check permaculture seed exchanges. Post on gardening forums. People with established patches are usually delighted to share excess top sets. Look for local plant swaps and farmers markets where heirloom gardeners gather. You want either top sets, the aerial bulbs, or divisions, clumps dug from an existing patch. Both establish readily. Plant in fall or early spring. Walking onions are so cold-hardy that timing is forgiving. They'll settle in and wait for appropriate growing conditions. Choose a site with full sun to partial shade. They'll tolerate quite a bit of shade, though production is higher with more light. Soil should be reasonably well drained, but doesn't need to be rich. These are tough plants from tough ancestry. Space divisions about 8 inches apart. Plant top sets just below the soil surface, pointed end up. Water once to settle them in. Then largely ignore them. No, really, that's the main instruction. Ignore them. They'll emerge when they're ready. They'll grow without supervision. They'll produce greens you can harvest and top sets that will bend down and root on their own. If you want to direct the walking, simply harvest the top sets before they root and plant them where you actually want more onions. This turns the patch into a controlled expansion rather than a random wander. For harvest, cut green shoots anytime they're large enough to bother with, typically pencil thickness or greater. The plant responds by producing more. You can harvest greens continuously from early spring through hard frost and in mild climates through winter. Dig underground bulbs when you need shallot-sized onions. Each clump produces multiple bulbs. Take some and leave others to regenerate. Harvest top sets in late summer when they're fully formed, but before they've rooted. Cure them briefly like regular onions. Then use fresh or store in a cool, dry place. They keep for months. The flavor is distinctly onion, but sharper, more assertive than supermarket varieties. Some describe it as onion with attitude. The greens are milder, somewhere between scallions and chives. Use everywhere you use onions. The top sets are especially good pickled, roasted whole with meats, or added to stews where their size keeps them intact. And save some top sets to give away. This is the traditional economy of the walking onion. Abundance shared. The plant spreading not just through gardens, but through communities. Watch your patch expand over the years. 3 plants become 10. 10 become 50. The onion walks slowly but relentlessly across your garden, each generation stepping a few inches further. Some gardeners give it free rein and harvest wherever it appears. Others contain it within dedicated beds and transplant the top sets deliberately. Either approach works. The plant is patient. It doesn't care how you manage it. It will keep producing, keep walking, keep offering food year after year, decade after decade, generation after generation. There's a metaphor in the walking onion that's worth sitting with. We live in a culture obsessed with novelty, new varieties, new products, new purchases. The assumption embedded in our economy is that providing for ourselves requires constant inputs, constant buying, constant dependency. The walking onion suggests another way. It doesn't need to be new. It's been walking for 5,000 years. It doesn't need inputs. It provides its own planting stock. It doesn't need us at all, really. Leave it alone and it handles everything. And yet it keeps giving. Greens in spring, bulbs in fall, top sets that become next year's plants, abundance that renews itself without depletion. This is what sustainability actually looks like, not complicated systems and expensive technologies. Just a plant doing what plants do, feeding humans as a side effect of living its own life. The walking onion doesn't hustle, it doesn't optimize, it doesn't scale. It just walks slowly through time, through empires rising and falling, through economic systems that appear and vanish, through human generations that plant it, harvest it, and pass it on. It will be walking when the seed companies have been forgotten, when the garden centers have crumbled, when whoever comes after us needs food that requires nothing but soil and patience. The Egyptians knew, the monks knew, the pioneers knew, and now you know. There's an onion that plants itself, that survives anything, that produces forever from a single planting. The question isn't whether it works. The question is why you're still buying onions. If this video opened something for you, subscribe and hit the bell. Every like and share helps preserve this wisdom, because they need you buying the same thing every year. But the archive knows plants that remember another way. The next file opens soon.